Namaste, everyone. Jefferson Glassie here. I'm up on the roof deck at the Devi Music Ashram in Rishikesh, India. You can see the mountains in the background, sort of the foothills of the Himalayas. And you can hear the sounds of this town all around. Dogs, construction, horns honking, whatever. But I just wanted to provide a little explanation of this ancient knowledge called Hermeticism. I do believe it's rather profound. I think would be very helpful for many people and even for our human society, for all that it has to teach us about how life is. So let me get started. So it's a sort of this ancient teaching attributed to a fellow named Hermes Trismegistus, who's believed to be either a combination of an Egyptian sage or a god, maybe. The Greeks were very interested in this knowledge back then as well. There was quite a bit of ancient knowledge in the day back then. What was that, maybe 2,500 years ago, that was destroyed. And, through whatever reasons, there were times when people did have to kind of save the knowledge. The ancient libraries at Alexandria were destroyed. Why do you need all these books if you have one book in religion? It was based on, Hermeticism is based on this sort of ancient knowledge. You might see a bird flying by every once in a while, and there's a little monkey over my left shoulder over there. I hope he doesn't come over and check out the computer and what we're doing. So the knowledge was preserved and passed on in various forms, and had influence on a lot of authors, scientists, luminaries during the Renaissance, especially, years and years later, though very much is unknown. But it was kind of synthesized in a book called the Kybalion, written by 3 initiates in about 1908, and it's sort of a modern compilation of the knowledge, which is organized under 7 overlapping principles. To me, it kind of provides a profound summary of the key principles of life, and it blends sort of ancient spiritual understanding with modern science, particularly quantum physics. And it can provide, I believe, helpful guidance in our lives and for society. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the implications for music and musicians. So the first principle is called Mentalism. Everything begins in the mind. All actions come from thoughts, which are just vibrational energies, like little entities. The universe itself, according to the Kybalion and Hermeticism, is a mental construct. There is an all, they call it with a capital A, which some may think of as God's mind. Another interpretation that I might tend to favor is that it could be the Naad, N-A-A-D, the unstruck sound, as related in Hindu thought. All is mind is the essential principle of mentalism. Everything is also holographic. Every individual thing is part of the whole, but also has all of the whole in it. Like an individual wave in the ocean, an individual part can affect the whole. So it's clear, we really experience everything in our minds. Nothing humans have ever done, like building, creating things, planning things, writing, art, music, construction, came first from thoughts. And the basic principle of Hermeticism says that our reality is only an interpretation of what is outside of us. Different people experience and interpret everything differently. For example, weather, art, literature, music, consistent with the principles of Jainism, where everything has infinite perspectives to it. One example might be, I heard recently, Dan Levitin, author of This Is Your Brain on Music, say that there is no such thing as actual music. It is simply vibrations out there that are interpreted in our ears, through our ears into our brains. So our mental processes can create our experiences. Your thoughts and beliefs create your reality. We create our beliefs can affect others as we are affected by others. If we believe we can achieve something, we are more likely to be able to achieve it. If we're kind and loving, that influences others, just as if we are angry and hateful, it has the same effect on others. One way to think about it, my good friend Lionel Cole says that sometimes it seems like my life is not even happening on Earth. I mean, sure, we have these bodies, we walk around, we have clothes, we drive in cars, all these things, but in many ways, it's all in the mind. And this principle will overlap with some of the other principles. For musicians, it's clear that music comes from the mind of the composer or the player. Practicing and playing are really mental projections. We want to create something, we want to play a certain chord or notes, and we think of it first and it happens. Musicians strive to play in a mental flow state where mental control is effortless. Playing with others requires sort of a mental telepathy in order to play together. So I think mentalism is a big part of music, and I think Victor Wooten would also agree with that. The second principle is called correspondence. Everything corresponds on all different layers. And it's most typically referred to as above, so below. As within, so without. In all planes of existence, however many there are, spiritual, physical, mental, everything corresponds. You can think of this with many physical examples. So the roots of the trees mimic the branches. They look the same. Roots and shoots. Atoms sort of look like and resemble, from what we know, or what we've told, galaxies in the solar system. Our veins are like rivers. The macro is really like the micro. The Fibonacci sequence, the repetitive cycle, exists throughout nature. If we're peaceful inside, we're peaceful outside. We're more likely to be reflected in our outward conduct, similar to what I said about mentalism. If we cultivate peace within, we're more likely to experience it outside in our interactions with others. If we mistrust others, we will encounter mistrustful people. There is harmony and connection between all levels of existence, physical, spiritual, etc. So this really comes out in our understanding of quantum physics. Quantum physics demonstrates that the observer changes a wave into a particle. If there is a wave out there which is really just possibilities, when we focus on it, it brings attention to it. I think of it this way, in respect to our lives and our thoughts. Think of yourself just on a regular day, and you have all these thoughts, and you think about this, you think about this, you think about this, and then what are you going to do? When you focus, it comes into play. It comes into action. And in our society too, you're walking here, there, you decide, I'm not sure I'm going to go to this way or that way, and then you take a left, and that's where you go. So when you focus on something, it comes into play. Everything is really connected as well. The entanglement theory of quantum physics shows that particles and things can affect one another wherever located. You know, the double slit experiment where the waves, when they're just going, they go through both slits at the same time. If we focus on them, they just go through one slit. Spooky action at a distance is what Einstein called it. You know, when we focus on something, it's really like an excitation in the field. And there's just a field of everything in this all, and an excitation here can result in an excitation there. This would suggest support for the experience of telepathy, and things like when the dog is at home waiting for the master to arrive. He knows the master or mistress, whatever's the appropriate things to say. You know, that we know that they kind of perceive, even maybe when the person leaves, not just walking up the door, they have a sense of it. And so this, as above, so below, as within, so without, really makes sense, and I think is a demonstration of how life is, even though, you know, quantum physics often seems kind of weird. The fact that the atoms, the quarks, the waves, the particles, all this is playing out in the physical level, in the spiritual level, etc. For musicians, I mean, music is just part of a vibrational spectrum. One example is when rhythmic sounds are sped up, becomes notes, and when they even go faster, becomes light. So music is simply organized vibration, organized frequency, and that correlates through all planes. Musical notes come from silence and then retreat back into silence. The third principle sounds sort of musical just in its name: vibration. Everything vibrates constantly, incessantly, all throughout the universe. Nothing rests. We know that a chair is made up of all sorts of atoms and electrons and things, but it's mostly just space. It's vibrating energy in space. A chair, a desk, everything, us, we are just mostly empty space vibrating. Even matter that looks solid is really just mostly space. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. As I mentioned, our thoughts and our emotions are vibrations. All reason, desire, or mental state are vibrations. And these vibrations can really be transferred to other entities. And that ties into mentalism, as we said. Awareness of our own vibrations is important, really, for how we move through life, because if we realize sort of nothing is really solid, and these are mental projections of vibrating things, whatever they are, then we have an understanding of different perspectives. You know, it's said that there's 144 sides to the truth, and Jainism might say there are 1,000,000 sides to the truth, so that it can help us understanding our perspectives. Things change constantly and evolve and decay as the result of vibration, syntropy, entropy. I mean, electricity, electromagnetism, and our biofield, the electronic field around us is always vibrating, ceaselessly vibrating. An interesting example of this is through the what they call cymatics. When you put sand or salt on a plate, an electric plate, and then you make a vibration with a bow, or put in a frequency, different frequencies. The little sand and salt are like immediately turned into patterns, different patterns for different vibration, you know. And I think of it as we are just spun sound. You know, we are vibrating sound, an excitation in the field that is in our shape, and everything is sort of the same way. For musicians, I mean, you know, we talk about vibration. I mean, all music, rhythm, voice, rests are all aspects of vibration. It's all vibration. It's easier to see how everything, to sort of experience vibration through music. The fourth Hermetic principle is polarity. Everything has its opposite. Everything is dual, yet all opposites are the same. All opposites are the same and differ only in degree. It's like yin and yang. And all paradoxes can be resolved. So, a great example. Hot and cold are thought to be opposites, and yet they're really the same. They're just degrees. I mean, if something is hot and cold, cold is hot to something that's colder. The same with love and hate, north and south, big and small, light and dark, fast and slow, sound and silence. All are the same, just extremes of the same things. Poles are really sort of an illusion of the mind. Polarity is related also to rhythm, which we're going to get to in a second, and it can flow back and forth amongst those extremes. We can see that, you know, our thoughts, love, fear, all these things, when on a plane, it shows you that, well, if you're sad, you may be happier than what is more sad than the sad that you are. We can decide really where on the spectrum we want to be in a lot of the things that affect our life, a lot of our perspectives on life. You know, where are we in the polarity of existence and perspectives of existence? It's also said that the measure of the swing from one opposite to the other opposite is the same. And if you bring it into our lives, as I was kind of trying to indicate, we can sort of decide where to be on this polarity. We can reduce the swings and smooth out our lives and moods. Another example of this is how different people can perceive the same things differently. It says boring or exciting. Well, that was terrible. It was great. Same people, just looking at the same things. Politics is another good example of how, you know, things on the right and the left are really kind of the same thing, the same analytical framework, but you may view it one way or another. For musicians, the entire polarity of sound observable to humans is sort of like a canvas of the music, and it can evoke emotions through tension and release, thoughts, feelings, and sensations. This ties right into the fifth Hermetic principle of rhythm. Everything has patterns, cycles, and they move, although differently, but everything flows out and in, back and forth. I mean, we see this in nature. The tides, the orbits of the planets in rhythm, day and night, sunrise, sunset, the moon and its cycles, weather cycles, the seasons, birth, death, our heartbeat, breath, walking, running, eating. All these repeat themselves in cycles. Think of the sound of cicadas, of birds, of geese, the way that birds fly, the way that animals run. so much is rhythm, one foot then another foot. Empires rise and fall. In our human society and governance, empires rise and fall. The economy grows, the economy declines. Political changes, fascism, democracy, fascism, authoritarianism, freedom, etc. And so we know that these things will swing, and it can give us great hope and encouragement when if we know things may be one way, as they seem to be now, that they're going to go back the other way. And it may come back with greater force and sooner even. So we can learn to ride with the rhythms and cycles of life, and even them out, and avoid the extremes, such as with our emotions. I mean, for musicians, there would be no music without rhythm. It'd just be a bunch of notes all smashed together, without rhythm, without space, without rest. The music flows this way, and that gives music its power, tension and release. The sixth Hermetic principle is called cause and effect. Everything has its cause and effect. It's like karma in a way. This principle basically says there's no such thing as chance or happenstance. Everything happens to some sort of law of cause and effect. Whatever has happened in your life or in any regard was caused by something. And so if we feel like we're down and out, there could be a rhythm that can take us elsewhere, but it's the cause of something. But if there's a cause of something and an effect, we can also be the effect of a cause and sort of take charge and decide how we want to do things. Nothing happens by chance. Chance is only a term for a law that's not recognized. Synchronicity is really sort of law. Everything that happens to you was caused by something, not chance, not just luck. There's kind of like no such thing as luck. Everything that happens to you or anyone is caused by something. So when it comes to our personal lives, we can have better results if we understand this, as what I was talking about with Polarity, because we can ride the swings, learn how to avoid some of these swings in our mental perspectives and appreciations of life, and recognize that we can make a better world, or a more harmonious world, or a brighter or darker, or whatever we're looking for, that we can have the changes that are necessary. We're not at the mercy of those who may seem to have stronger wills, or swept along by circumstances. We don't have to be at the mercy of others. We can stop things if necessary. For musicians, the emotions, feelings, and sensations of music can have effects way beyond the causes of simply hitting strings or striking notes on a piano. The causes and the effects that we bring through music do have impacts on people, can change their lives, can calm them down, bring peace, can excite them up, give them energy. I find this very helpful to understand that if you meet somebody, or if somebody says, "Hey, read this book," or if something happens that you recognize, that's kind of like a signal that there was something that caused it, and you can look for the effect, and you can look for the silver linings. You can look for the things that may happen beyond your initial perspective, because you can always change your mind. The seventh Hermetic principle is gender. I find this very interesting because it seems a little different than most of the other principles. But according to the Kybalion and the principles of Hermeticism, everything has its masculine and feminine energies on all planes. We're not just talking sex here. The masculine represents what you might think of as sort of left brain reason and analytical thought. It reflects drive, power, will, motivation. The feminine is more like the right brain, which represents creativity, intuition, imagination, feeling, emotion, empathy, nurturing. All men have feminine energies and all women have masculine energies. It's important. The sun is masculine, puts out the light. The moon is feminine in its receptiveness to light and its cycles. Masculine and feminine are polarities as well, and so essentially are the same. If out of balance, too much masculinity, too much masculine energy results in chaos. Too much feminine energy results in a lack of progress and achievement. I think one way to think about it, one example is the clover seed is the masculine that goes inside of the soil, which is the feminine. I think it's very interesting to sort of analyze and think about how does this really play out in your lives. All of these principles, to me, I didn't know anything about Hermeticism until my friend Tiago, who I met in Brazil in the rainforest, told me about it. Since then, I found that hardly anybody that I know has heard about Hermeticism, but it seems very profound. It seems really something that I think can help better our lives. So for gender, the music needs that active movement and push toward tension, and then the release into the receptive and the listening and creative spaces to become effective. So I think that these principles really can help us navigate life in a more satisfactory way and achieve what we want individually, as families, as groups, as nations, cultures, societies, and even as a species. It's not dogma, it's not dogmatic. It, I think, as indicated in a few examples, reflects and is consistent with quantum physics, which otherwise seems to be completely separate from what we might be able to understand of it and put it into practice in our life. But when you sort of think of your life as a series of possibilities that are brought into clarity by focus and then action through the masculine energies, and that we can be receivers of energy of others and other things, there's this cycle of energy that I believe can be really helpful to understand. Now, these Hermetic principles don't really say, how do you do something? I mentioned some of the impacts of Hermeticism in terms of how you can perceive things or how they can be used in your lives, as within, so without. It makes sense to try to cultivate peacefulness and harmony, coherence, and all, but I don't really see anything here that's about love. Maybe an understanding of oneness, of all is mind, because I do think that love is oneness and has an all of us perspective, whereas fear has a perception of separation. and is more about not understanding the interconnectedness of everything. It doesn't really reflect intention. I have not read the Kybalion. I'm sitting here telling you all this. I need to read the Kybalion, but I've looked at a lot of talks about this, and I'm trying to formulate my own ideas and learn, hopefully more from others too, who have additional perspective and insights. But as Victor Wooten says, intention is the key to everything. So how does intention reflect or is impacted by the Hermetic principles? Entrainment. Entrainment is so powerful in terms of harmony. Things are all chaos, and then they kind of come together. You know, like the pendulums on clocks begin to swing together. When people are singing, they may start off happy birthday, all in different pitches and keys, and then they kind of come together. You know, a team, an athletic team, a band may start off separately, but then come together. And so I don't see how entrainment is really reflected here either. Well, there's my perspective on it, on Hermeticism. I hope that may be helpful, but I do hope mostly and request that if any of you have thoughts about any of these principles, please let me know. Put them in the comments on this YouTube, and I hope this has been beneficial for you. I appreciate your listening. I assure you that if you have things to say, if you have insights, perspectives about this, I'm sure there are so many people who know a lot more than I do about it. But I wanted to bring it to the attention of more people, kind of musicians in particular, because that's been sort of my focus recently. And I just want to thank you very much. Appreciate it. Namaste. Have a good day wherever you are.